Yes, Inspector?
The fire.
One lump or two, sir?
3. Something bothering you, Constable?
No, Sergeant.
Come on now, lad. You can confide in me like you might your own father.
It just isn't what I came into the force for, sir.
Now, what isn't?
Coaling up other people's fires like a backstairs tweenie.
Inspector Pennyquick isn't other people. If you joined the army instead of the police force...
But I didn't join the army,
you
Sergeant.
might have found yourself doing a lot worse things if you had. Now, remember when I was at Balaclava, we... Oh. Yes, miss?
There's been a murder. Number 14, Ryder Street.
Has there now?
Sergeant Gribble, I'll be obliged. Hello, what's this then?
Young lady has information about a murder, Inspector. Ryder Street, number 14.
And how did you come to hear about it, Miss
Smith. Mrs. Crosscapple sent me.
Crosscapple?
She's the woman who owns the boarding house where I work.
Oh, you're a domestic?
I'm the cook.
Have you seen the murdered person, miss?
I was only sent for to inform you.
Quite right and proper. Goff,
Yes, sir.
accompany this young lady back to number 14 Ryder Street. Find out if there's anything in it. If there is, report back here directly. Let no one enter or leave the building till we arrive.
No, sir.
Now, you know the procedure if anyone volunteers a statement?
I do, sir.
Right. Off you go then, lad.
Am I to take a cab, Inspector?
It's no distance, Constable.
No, sir.
A cook.
Very nice, too, eh? As cooks go.
Can you tell me something about the man, miss? His name?
Zebedee. John Zebedee. I know nothing about them.
Them?
He's recently married. They're staying in London till they sail.
Oh?
To Australia.
Australia, eh?
He said we were to walk.
Who? Oh, the inspector. Oh, I'm paying for this out of my own pocket.
Why?
Oh, if there's been a crime committed, doesn't pay to walk when you should run.
Perhaps you're not meant to run before you can walk.
Well, some of us can do both. So you're a cook, are you?
What if I am?
Oh, nothing. I just wouldn't have thought it, that's all. It was meant for a compliment.
Are you quite sure the door is locked?
Yes.
Make up that fire smartly, Betsy, and stop snivelling. We shall have the police here directly.
A very good idea. Make it as comfortable as you can and we'll never get rid of them.
Cousin Margaret, I begin to wonder if you've quite grasped the seriousness of the situation. Betsy, where's Dr. McLeish? I distinctly requested everyone to come
Dr. McLeish is with the deceased wife, Mrs. Zebedee, as I believe. I cannot believe that poor creature is responsible.
That poor creature's already confessed. They'll take her away and there's an end of it.
Betsy, look sharp. Find Dr. McLeish and ask him if he would be so good as to step into my parlour.
I said the spider to the fly.
Your levity in the circumstances is as much a matter of good taste as a pauper's breakfast.
A lot of fuss about nothing.
About murder, Cousin Margaret. That'll be Priscilla with the police.
Do remember to be your natural offensive self.
She couldn't have killed him.
Distantly related though we may be, I consider Mrs. Crosscapple is capable of anything.
I was referring to Mrs. Zebedee.
She said she did it, she must know.
It had to happen. There's something about this house, a presence, something I cannot explain away to my own satisfaction.
A presence?
You must have noticed.
I've noticed nothing.
A haunting sensation of someone in the house, but not of it. I cannot explain.
If you cannot explain, then it cannot exist outside of your imagination, Mr. Cramber, can it?
Yes, but I...
Can it, Mr. Cramber?
Priscilla, join Betsy in the parlour and remain there till I say otherwise. No doubt you wish to see the body.
I
3
will...
flights up and it's the door on the left.
You're Mrs...
Cross Capel.
I see. I shall want to inspect the premises, ma'am.
Whatever for?
It's routine, ma'am.
Well, that won't be necessary. His wife has confessed. Did the cook not tell you? There's no need to turn the place upside down looking for the murderer. She's up there.
That remains to be seen, ma'am.
Well, it really isn't necessary.
If you'll excuse me, ma'am. Mrs. Zebedee? This man?
Her husband. Now ask another full question.
Who are you, sir?
McLeish, former doctor of medicine. One of the best ones. You've never heard of me?
No, sir.
Oh, well, it's a damn funny old will of it.
Are you one of the boarders here, sir?
Aye, and if I
I
am,
might ask what you're doing in this room.
physic. A little something to calm the poor lassie down. And look, suppose you look after the dead, while I take care of the living. Here you are, lass. Now, you just drink this down, eh?
I killed him. I killed him.
Her nerves are all in fringes. She's been blaming herself ever since he discovered him.
You were the first...
I heard her screaming blue murder. Now, what would you have done?
Which is your room, sir?
Across the landing. I was well placed.
Was it? And you came in?
Followed her in. She stood in the middle of the room with a knife in her hand.
Where is the knife now, sir?
On the floor behind you. She dropped it when I slapped her face.
Why did you do that, sir?
Slap her? She was hysterical. Now, can I take the poor creature out of this?
Yes, of course.
Come on.
I killed him.
You did no such thing.
You seem very sure, sir.
I'm as sure as I'm sure of things that go bump in the night. My bonny wee policeman.
You were asked to remain downstairs, miss.
I came up to fetch a handkerchief from my room. Mrs. Crosscapel said I might.
Where is your room?
Where a domestic's room usually is. At the top of the house.
Well, she didn't say you could come up here, and neither did I.
I've never seen a dead man before.
Come on now, miss.
He looks so peaceful. Sinless.
This is no place for you. You don't seem to realise a man has been done to death, brutally murdered, maybe by someone in this house. And doesn't that frighten you?
Why should I be scared of the dead?
So if the area gate was locked, the kitchen window shutters fastened, the back door secured, the downstairs windows ditto, then we're almost certainly looking for the murderer inside this house.
Well, then it must be Mrs. Zebedee. She confessed. She said she killed him.
Just tell me what you can about this business, will you, Mum?
I heard screams at midnight or thereabouts. Naturally, I went to see what was happening. Dr. McLeish was in Mrs. Zebedee's room attempting to pacify her. She was quite distracted.
You sent the cook for the police, but not for the doctor.
Dr. McLeish said Mrs. Zebedee was dead. I could hardly flout his judgment and call for a second opinion.
This couple, this Mr. and Mrs. Zebedee, you had any trouble with them before?
No. But there was one odd thing about her.
Hmm?
She walked in her sleep. Mr. Zebedee warned me when they first arrived, and of course I indicated as much to everyone in the house. It can be disturbing if you're not expecting such behaviour.
Walked in her sleep.
So she must have killed him.
What
while
kind of
she-
man was he?
Kind?
Zebedee.
Oh, I really couldn't say.
Try.
Well, he was handsome.
I know what he looks like.
You'd better ask his wife.
I'm asking you.
He said very little about his affairs. They were both of the servant class. He was formerly a footman, and Mrs. Zebedee had been a lady's maid, I believe.
Yet their clothes look expensive.
Well, he did mention that Mrs. Zebedee had recently received a substantial legacy.
In spite of which he said little about his affairs.
I'm only telling you what he told me.
I'm obliged to you. I'd like a word with Dr. McLeish now, Mum. From a dear friend. Goff, you say that McLeish is definite that Mrs. Zebedee is not the guilty party.
Yes, sir.
That surprise you?
He saw her with the knife in her hand, sir.
Tell him, Sergeant.
It doesn't mean she killed him.
I was about to say so, sir.
Just in case you're curious, I'm not guilty from head to foot.
Dr. McLeish,
Aye?
perhaps you'd like to give me your account of the affair, sir.
Well, I came in late. Locked the door and then started up the stairs, and suddenly, there before me in the half-darkness, an apparition. A creature, floating silently up the stairs. A somnambulist, I said to myself. I was sober in an instant. I realized it was Mrs. Zebedee, so I followed her on tiptoe. You see, it's fatal to waken the subject out of time. Watched her go into her room, then I went into mine. I hadn't closed the door 5 seconds before I heard a scream. I nearly dropped the bottle in my hand. I rushed out, and there, with a knife in her grasp, was Mrs. Zebedee. Hang it all, man, there wasn't time for her to kill him.
Unless the deed was done earlier.
Rubbish!
You're not a practicing physician, sir?
That makes my testimony no less valid.
Certainly. That'll be all, thank you. May I ask why you no longer follow your profession, Doctor?
Drink!
Which might account for things that go bump in the night. Have a word with Miss Mybus, Sergeant, see what you can learn from her.
Sir?
Goff,
Sir?
better have Mrs. Zebedee in now.
Yes, sir.
Has she said anything to you?
Mrs. Zebedee, sir?
The cook?
Nothing, sir.
That's funny. Cooks are usually talkative.
She's not in the usual run of domestics, sir.
No.
Who is it?
Sergeant Gribble, ma'am.
Go away, I've nothing to say.
I'm afraid I must ask you a few questions, ma'am.
You wicked man, I'm in bed.
Well, wherever you are.
Oh, very well. But you must follow my directions implicitly. I shall arise, go to the door, draw back the bolt, and then return to bed. I shall then require you to count up to 40, after which you may enter.
Very well, ma'am. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Not so fast.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Do you remember this? And when was the last time you saw it?
My husband.
Your husband, yes.
I took it out of his body. It made a squelching sound. Like boots lifted out of mud. I took it out.
His knife. Not his. But didn't you give it to him?
I never saw it before in my life.
But there's an inscription. To John Zebedee from a dear friend. Now, who was this dear friend?
I never saw it before.
But it's his knife.
No! John never had such a thing.
Are you quite sure?
Never.
By all accounts, she should be lying.
Well, why should I lie? I've lost everything that made my life worth living. We were going to emigrate, go far away, start a new life. We were going to work for ourselves instead of slaving for others. Now there's nothing. Well, why should I lie?
38, 39, 40. I am now about to enter, ma'am.
You may do so. Well, don't stand there gawping. Have you never seen a woman in bed before?
Never, except for me old mother, ma'am.
Oh, you men are all liars, and policemen are no exception. Shut the door. You were in the army. No man would dare to wear such ridiculous whiskers unless he'd served in the cavalry.
I had the honour to serve in the Crimea, ma'am.
Oh, more fool you. Honour! I've seen what your precious army can do to a man. Well, this is my budgerigar.
Oh.
Yeah, he's been stuffed these 20 years come Whitsun, and I've no idea who killed Zebedee.
Well, if I might just ask you a few questions, Miss Yorpus?
Mybus. You should pay attention to details, Sergeant. They can be so important. Now, what is it you wish to tell me?
Oh, nothing, ma'am. Well, perhaps I ought to remind you that a man has been brutally done to death in this house.
Oh, it's not my fault. No, you must bear the full responsibility. After all, it could have happened to me, and then where would you be? Still asking me stupid questions, no doubt. Yes, now, if you've quite finished bullying me, I shall attempt to get some sleep. You may call again tomorrow, when we shall both have had time to reflect on this tragedy. Yes, good night, Sergeant.
The inspector'd like a word with you, Sergeant.
Ah.
I suppose Miss Mybus wasn't very helpful?
She was overawed with the stripes, Land. Overawed.
Now perhaps you realize the danger. In future, you will do as we say. You will not wander about the house as though you were a free agent, or we can do nothing for you.
So you were still up and dressed at midnight, Mr. Crambo?
Yes, I was still up.
Everyone else in the house came out to see what the noise was about. Mrs. Crosscapple says you never appeared until she knocked on your door. Well, it's usual to find out what a commotion's about.
It had nothing to do with me.
Very likely
I pay
not.
my rent. I'm on my own business. And if I hear screams, I close my ears.
We all of us owe something to our neighbours, Mr. Crambo, especially when they're in distress.
I can do nothing for Mrs. Zebedee, beyond affirming her innocence.
Affirming or speculating?
It was not the cry of a murderess, believe me, I know with every fibre of my being. It was the cry of a soul in torment.
To which you closed your ears?
I have very good reason.
Well?
It must be obvious I'm not in the best of health for some years now. I have no need to explain myself to you.
That depends.
You think I killed him. Why? Because I'm lame. Because I cannot entirely control my sensibilities. Why should I be marked down because of infirmities I cannot choose but bear, because some fool gets himself murdered?
Compassion doesn't seem to be one of your infirmities, Mr. Crambo.
There's too much compassion for the dead in our time. There's too little for the living. If I must weep, I'll weep for Mrs. Zebedee.
How?
As an anguished fellow being.
I see.
No, you don't see. Any more than you could hear footsteps wrapped in black velvet scarcely disturbing the silence. No, you don't see.
Only that you're imagining things, Mr. Crambo.
This way, sir.
No, you don't see. At all.
Mad as McNaughton.
Oh, well. Madness isn't badness. Right, well, I'm going to take Mrs. Zebedee back to the station. Sergeant, I'd like you to come with me.
Sir?
Goff,
Yes, sir.
you stay here and question the domestics.
Yes, sir.
From a dear friend that nearly tells us everything and almost tells us nothing.
Aren't you going to answer it, miss?
What do you want? How long have
I
you...
just came to ask a few questions.
You were listening.
To a bell? Well, that wouldn't get me very far, would it? Who was it, miss? I said, who was it?
Mr. Crambo. Does it matter?
Well, shouldn't you see what he wants?
What could he want at this hour of the morning?
Especially from the cook.
I've nothing to tell you.
14 rooms. I spoke to Betsy just now. She couldn't tell me much either.
Well, what do you expect? There's not much to tell. They took Mrs. Zebedee away just now, so she must have done it.
She says she did it, so we have to act as though she did.
You seem to doubt it.
You afraid of something, miss?
Not of you.
Well, I mean, cooks are usually fat, jolly people. You're... Tell me, what did you do when you heard the screams?
I dressed quickly and came downstairs.
Ah. Well, Betsy says she was awake with toothache till 12. Heard you go to your room not 5 minutes before.
She's mistaken.
Well, you were one of the last to go to your room.
Of course, it's part of my duties to turn down the lights.
Then if Mrs. Zebedee was walking in her sleep, you may well have seen her.
Was she sleepwalking?
Let me ask the questions, miss. What were you doing before you turned the lights down?
I was reading.
A Bible.
My father's. He was a Baptist minister.
So you didn't undress?
Oh, well, I started to, and then...
I see. We had one at home. Whenever my mother had a difficulty, she'd open it anywhere, point to a passage, swore it worked every time. For the lips of a strange woman drop as an honeycomb, and her mouth is smoother than oil, but her end is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. I never believed in it much myself. I'd better be off.
They've gone. You realise it isn't going to be easy. You'd better go to your room.
Priscilla. Priscilla.
You've had a trying time, Mrs. Zebedee. There's not one of us doesn't feel for you. I hope that's some consolation.
I've reason to be very grateful to you, Inspector. If it hadn't been for you at the inquest...
Well, that's all over now. Now, my advice to you is go through that door and start again.
Goodbye.
And never look back.
Well, I don't know what she would have been like as a wife, but she makes a lovely little widow.
Crosskapple. Why does that name ring a bell?
I can't think, sir.
What about this knife?
It's a sort of article that's sold by the thousand.
Not with that engraving on the handle, it doesn't. No, I mean, what about the photograph we had taken of it?
Circulated to every police station in the country. We've heard nothing.
Yes, Goff.
Mr. Cranber outside, sir. Particularly wants to speak to you. Seems very agitated, sir.
All right. Come to confess, I shouldn't wonder.
I should. Ah, take a chair, Mr. Cranber.
I know who killed Zebedee.
Unless, of course, you prefer to stand.
That is, I know. And I don't know.
Riddles. Well, now, that is seasonal.
You're mocking me.
No, I'm trying to make things easy for you, Mr. Cranber.
You still believe I did it?
I believe, Mr. Cranber, that you once voluntarily confined yourself, under your father's direction, to a private asylum.
A nervous illness. I told you.
What else have you got to tell us, Mr. Cranber?
In the house. A man I've never seen before. I thought it was my imagination, so I asked Mrs. Crosskapple, is there another boarder I've never met? Someone who, like myself, leads a quiet, retiring life, perhaps even for the same reasons. And she said that I was mistaken. There was no one, and I'm certain she's lying.
A stranger?
And sounds. Vague as shadows. Voices. Whisperings. From nowhere. Not often.
All right, we'll look into it, Mr. Cranber. Thank you, I won't keep you.
Strangers' voices, just to cast dust in our eyes, I reckon.
There's 14 rooms in that house, and there's only 7 of them occupied. You sure you searched that place thoroughly?
I did, sir.
Every room?
Except Miss Mybus's, sir.
Well, I searched that room, sir. Well, at least...
Oh, wait a minute. She got 2 rooms?
Yes, that's right. I saw the door leading to a parlour, as I suppose it was.
But you didn't search it?
No, Inspector.
Goff!
Yes, sir?
Go round to see Miss Mybus, see what she's got to say about this story of Krampus. Have a look and see what's behind that door of hers, if anything.
Yes, sir.
Who is it?
Police Constable Goff, ma'am. I'd like a word with you, if I may.
Are you the good-looking one?
That's right, ma'am.
One moment. So you're back again. And who's been murdered this time?
No one that I know of, ma'am.
Well, you better come in. Well?
Mr. Cramber called on us with a very unusual story. My superior thought it should be treated seriously.
Your superior's a fool. You're all fools. The assassin's been under your noses for the past 3 weeks and you've let her go.
Well, Mr. Cramber talks of someone else. A stranger seen in the house. Not one of the boarders.
Really? Oh, well, anyone with 2 glass eyes and a defective ear trumpet would know that poor Mr. Cramber's figments should be taken with a large pinch of salt.
He also claims to have heard strange noises in the house. Voices and so forth.
Well, I may claim to be the Empress of China, but I should be ashamed to admit it to the public at large.
Then you've heard nothing?
Nothing.
I see. I wonder if I might ask about that door, ma'am.
It leads to my parlour. I am not only Mrs. Crosscapple's nearest living relative, I am also her only parlour boarder.
Surely the parlour is usually in the front of the house?
I particularly requested the rooms to be rearranged. This room is too sunny in the mornings.
May I see the parlour, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
I take it the inner door leads to the passage.
You have only to open it.
It's locked.
Yes, to the passage.
I see. Well, thank you, ma'am. I'm sorry to have disturbed you.
One moment. Perhaps you will now allow me to satisfy my curiosity.
If I can.
Why should Sergeant Gribble, the officer with those disgusting mustachios, visit this house so often?
All in the line of duty, no doubt.
Well, his duty must be highly confidential, otherwise surely he would come to the front door.
I don't understand.
3 times, to my certain knowledge, he has descended to the basement by the area steps, and never in uniform. I've seen him from my window. Now, why should he do that?
To preserve his incognito, I imagine.
I mean, why should he wish to visit the cook?
Or Betsy.
Nonsense. Betsy's a dumpling.
Sergeant Gribble happens to be fond of dumplings. Good night, ma'am. I thought your room was the one across the landing, sir.
But this is where I hear the voices, and yet the room's empty. You can see for yourself. It's quite empty.
Expecting someone? Someone else? I'm sorry to disappoint you. Why should Sergeant Gribble call on you 3 times in as many weeks?
And you better ask him.
No, I'm asking you.
It's not easy to answer.
Well, I must know.
I suppose he wants to find out who killed Mr. Zebedee.
Well, that doesn't explain why I should call on you so often.
No. Perhaps he has a more personal reason.
Gribble?
Some things are better than loneliness. Even Sergeant Gribble. Besides, I feel safe when he's here.
If you ask me, miss, you were deceiving yourself and Sergeant Gribble along with you.
Look, I didn't ask him to come. Or you. Why don't you all leave me alone?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, miss. I'd be sorrier still if someone had a claim to you.
Sickens me what men say. What they really mean.
Yes. Just answer me one thing, miss, will you? Do you know of anyone at all, a stranger, a visitor who comes to this house regular?
Stranger? Who said so? Who said so?
Mr. Cramber, as it happens.
He's lying.
Is it Mr. Cramber you're afraid of?
He's just leaving. Why should they keep coming back? Murder by a person or persons unknown. Doesn't that satisfy them?
Don't be a fool. They never give up.
Then there's no hope for him.
Fiddlesticks. He's as safe as the Bank of England if only we keep our heads.
I'm grateful to you. You must know that.
For what? For marrying into my family? Oh, I'm going to bed. And don't concern yourself about the police. They're only interested in that cook of yours, which is our good fortune.
Miss Mybus says she's definitely seen nothing, heard nothing out of the ordinary, sir. Nor has Miss Smith.
Miss Smith?
The cook, sir.
Oh, you want to be careful of that one, my lad. She's a cool customer. I wasn't born yesterday.
Oh, that wasn't my impression.
Oh, I do believe he's smitten, sir, blushing fit to bust.
In fact, I thought you admired her.
Well, whatever gave you that idea?
Oh, something she said.
Suits my book, lad. If she knows as much as I give her credit for, well, a little harmless flirtation might help to pick the lock.
You suspect her?
Suspicion's a bit strong, lad. Let's say she don't ride true to snaffle somehow.
Now, I don't give tuppence if you are my superior.
Goff! I'll say it for you, and you needn't fear being disciplined. Do you think that Sergeant Gribble is practicing a heartless flirtation on an innocent girl?
Oh,
well, that's just maybe. But somebody in that house killed Zebedee, and we've got a job to do. It's a scavenger's job, clearing up the mess. We can't afford finer feelings to do more than they can.
Even so,
Oh,
sir,
maybe you think you can do better with kid gloves and patent leather boots.
maybe I could, sir.
Now, careful, Constable. You've come a long way in 2 years, lad. Now, don't throw it away because of an infatuation.
Of course. It's his day off tomorrow, sir. He might spend half an hour clearing up the mystery, if he's got nothing better to do.
Yes. Yes, perhaps he might. He's got his theories right. All right, then. Let's suppose this and suppose the other. What will be the first thing you do, then, Constable?
I'd ask to have another look at the knife, sir.
That's easily done. Now, Cutlass Hall has told us all we want to know about that knife. It's an old knife made by a firm that went bankrupt 40 years back. It's the engraving on the handle that's new.
What we want to know is who gave it to him.
A dear friend. Now, if we knew more about Zebedee, maybe it was someone in love with him, sir.
Oh, Goff, your trouble is you're an idealist, lad. They don't have the same values as realists.
I always thought duty was an ideal, sir.
No, lad, that's a reality. Like putting lumps of coal on the fire. So, it's your day off tomorrow, then?
Yes, sir.
Right. Zebedee was in service at Herne Manor, near Waterbank. That's a nice little spot. You've got my permission to run down there and see what you can find out.
Thank you, Inspector.
I'm doing you no favours, lad. Don't think I am. Right, off you go, then. Any luck with those day reports?
No sign of a cross couple, sir.
All right, keep looking.
Yes, sir.
It's after 11.
I know.
Why can't it wait
Well,
until...
this is important. If you like, it's official.
So I can't refuse?
No. I shouldn't be here rightly. Oh, but I've just come straight from the station. You can forget about Gribble. He doesn't give tuppence for you. Whatever he might have said isn't worth your remembering.
Seems to make you happy.
Happy? Well, of course I'm happy. It's what I was hoping for.
You asked him?
I didn't have to. He came right out with it. Having you on, he said.
Why?
Well, it's just the way these things work when there's been a crime committed. Just hoping he might pick up a useful bit of information. So I remembered what you said about men saying one thing and meaning another. Well, that may do very well for Gribble or anyone else. But my mind doesn't run that way.
What are you trying to say?
Well, when I asked about him, about Gribble, it was jealousy, nothing more. Oh, I'm not much good with words. But if you want it plainer, I can only
You're
say...
better not.
Priscilla.
Miss Smith, Constable.
Miss Smith, I know more than you think. I know that when you walked into the station that night, I loved you. And I know that as we rode in the cab for a few blessed moments, I loved you. And I know that sleeping or waking, I've thought of nothing and no one else ever since.
I'm very much obliged to you. I owe you that much.
Miss Smith, I mean every word I say.
Perhaps you do.
I'm not much of a bargain. My prospects aren't bad, no worse than a lot of others. Suddenly they're better. In fact, that's another reason I tore around here, shared the good news. You know what I did? I showed them they were looking the wrong way for Zebedee's killer. But the inspector, he's a good sort, he gave me a chance and a half. If only I can turn up the clue to this mystery.
Clue?
Well, don't you see what a difference it made to my chances? To our future?
No. No.
Here now. You're trembling.
I'm frightened.
What of me?
Go away. Please, you must go away.
No, I'm not leaving here until you give me an answer. Some hope.
I've got nothing to give you. Nothing. I want to leave this house.
Leave?
I must.
No, you can't do that.
Why not?
Well, if I'm to find out who killed Zebedee, then you must remain.
You want me to...
Yeah. I made you smile. Priscilla, please understand.
What do you want me to do?
Nothing much. Just watch, listen. I mean, everything counts. Nothing is too small. Nothing. I mean, even Zebedee. See, no one's given him much thought yet. Tomorrow I shall know more about him.
Zebedee?
He was in service near Waterbank. Now, you're not to be worried or frightened any more. Because everything's going to be all right. For both of us.
Waterbank. I find that very interesting. That's the second time he's called on you in as many hours.
He's a policeman. Presumably he's doing his duty.
And you're a cook. The two go together like turkey and plum pudding.
You're mistaken.
Whether I'm mistaken or not, the sooner you leave here, the better it will be for everyone concerned.
Will that solve your problems?
The police are looking for a murderer. Why should that be my problem?
You have good reason for wanting to keep them away from this house.
Perhaps we both have good reason.
I have nothing to fear.
Liar. I know exactly what you have to fear. I know all about you.
Do you honestly think that I shall lose so much by telling him what I know?
You will leave at the end of the week.
Hadn't you better ask him?
A month's wages should be mutually satisfactory. In the circumstances, you can hardly expect a reference.
I tell you, I saw him right there in the house.
Yes, can you describe him, sir?
Eh? Oh, no. Oh, well. He was a tall, strapping young fellow. He slipped into Miss Mavis's room when he thought I wasn't looking. Good God. I didn't think she knew one end of a man from the other.
Miss Mybus, sir?
You're welcome to a half share in my amazement.
Well, did she scream?
She did not. And what's more, neither did he.
I suppose she's old enough to know what she's doing.
Not the point. What I'm trying to tell you is it's been going on for months. Whispered voices. Footsteps on the stairs.
You never mentioned it before, sir.
Oh, well, I hadn't paid much heed to it till the murder. Besides, I often see things.
That aren't really there, sir.
Well, it's the gift of the second sight.
Or the second bottle, sir.
Here, you think I'm drunk?
Yes, sir.
How dare you insult a man, Jane? Oh, yeah, maybe you're right, eh? Oh, but I'm not so inebriated, I don't know what I'm talking about. Here, a man in her room. Oh, it's gruesome. It's gruesome.
Yeah, we'll look into it, sir. Well, looks as though Cranber might have been right after all, eh?
I've just found that. It was in the wrong section. To look out from the War Office for a deserter, George Crosscape.
Crosscape?
It's a mistake. It should be Cross Capel. I think we'll go and have another look at that house, Sergeant.
Is it true what my mother says, that you're leaving?
Yes.
But why? You're safe as long as you stay here. What's more, it's not fair on me. What sort of a life will it be not having you around? Oh, come on. I'm not so bad, am I? I admit I took advantage of you that night. But fair's fair. I don't blame you for what you did. So why blame me for what I did? Look, you say the word and I'll fix it with Ma. She's got no right turning you off like that anyway. I tell you what, let's you and me skip together. I'm sick of playing tag with the military anyway. If I stay, I'm bound to be taken sooner or later. It stands to reason. Well?
I'm leaving, and thank God I'll never have to see you again, ever.
You're a bit of a proud bitch, really, aren't you? It's about time you realised how well off you are after what I...
You don't frighten me anymore.
Oh, don't I? Well, I can still try.
I came straight here. Didn't even stop to report at the station. I told you everything would work out all right. Cut a long story short, I saw the housekeeper and she told me everything I wanted to know. Couldn't stop talking, one thing after another. If you ask me, she was a bit sweet on him herself. He was a real ladies' man, was Zebedee. You'd hardly credit it, but he was actually promised to one and made trips to London to visit another. Yes, well, I suppose it is a bit sordid, but that's what life's about. Some of it, anyway. What matters is, where do you suppose he spent his days off? 14 Ryder Street. Surprised me too. He was visiting Mrs. Crosscapel. Why not? Someone had to have that knife, why not her?
You think that Mrs.
If Mrs. Zebedee never saw it and it turns up in this house, who else could he have given it to? I learned enough to put a rope round that woman's neck.
She didn't do it.
What?
I told you, Mr. Policeman. You can't run before you can walk. But you had to know better than those who really know.
You said she didn't do it. You said she didn't do it. How could you know that? Answer me!
You know your trouble, Constable. You're thick.
Who are you?
Well, go on, Priscilla, tell the gentleman. Loyal, isn't she?
I'll ask you
My
once
trouble,
more.
on the other hand, is authority. I just don't like it. Whether it's marching around in a red coat or a navy blue uniform like yours.
You've been shielding this man, why?
You're all questions and no answers. It's not good enough, Constable. It's not what the public pays you for. Oh, don't come any nearer, friend.
You're the one she was afraid of.
Maybe she had good reason.
And you're the one who made her suffer.
I didn't notice her suffering. Not these last 3 weeks.
What?
Well, cooped up in this house all these months, what would you have done, friend?
Go upstairs, Priscilla. Wait for me there. I'm placing you under arrest.
Keep your distance! leave it at that, eh? I'm taking you in. You're not taking me anywhere. I know what it is. You're sweet on her. Well, she's like that. She grows on you. Well, take her. She's yours.
I'll kill you.
No, listen.
Not because of Zebedee, because he's no loss either. But you made her suffer.
What are you saying? I know nothing about Zebedee.
Wallet.
No, you got it all wrong. See?
Get up!
Get up! You fool! I saw her!
I killed him! No, Mrs. Croscapple. Not her son. Not anyone. I killed Zebedee. He saw me go into the bedroom. And he saw me leaving.
Son. I don't understand.
You're thick. Thick!
You were the one that Zebedee promised to marry.
Yes, he promised me.
So he must have known that you were in the house.
No.
Oh, now, come on, don't try and tell me it was pure chance.
No, don't you see? That's why it happened. I wouldn't have gone out of my way to punish him. But when I heard he was in this house with her, I rejoiced. For I knew it was the hand of God.
Of God?
Guiding him here.
Now, listen to me. When you knew Zebedee, he mentioned his visits to London with friends and relations in Ryder Street.
No!
Yeah, once, in the way of conversation, he said how a friend of his was in need of a cook. And when he cast you off, you found you couldn't stay in Waterbank, you'd have to find a new position. So you remembered the one place you knew. Or maybe even told you you'd spend your honeymoon there with his good friends the Crosscapples in Ryder Street. Maybe they still needed a cook.
You're torturing words into facts where they never were. God called me. How else could I have done such a thing?
This has nothing to do with God. I could destroy you with a word. God forgive me, I can't say that word. In spite of everything. It's maybe because of everything. I still love you.
It's no use. It's not in our hands.
I love you, Priscilla.
You're forgetting George Crosscapple.
You go upstairs and you get your things together and we'll go away. We'll go in a cab like when we first met. And everything will be all right. I promise you.
Where is my son?
Giving himself up, ma'am. Very wisely. Walked right into our arms, as you might say. He will be detained as a deserter from Her Majesty's army. And as for those who afforded him all aid and comfort to avoid apprehension...
My nearest living relative, Sergeant. Do you know what they did to him in the army? Flogged him. Unofficially, of course, into insensibility. I'm not ashamed of my part in this affair.
You will be answerable in due course, ma'am.
Where is he?
Not just now, ma'am.
My son did not kill Zebedee.
Sergeant, I shouldn't be surprised if you find Constable Goff downstairs in the kitchen.
Yes, sir.
No, your son did not kill Zebedee. Did he, Miss Smith?
Crosscapple's son. He killed Zebedee.
Found him on the floor, sir. Must have passed out.
All right, Sergeant. We'll take the others back to the station. We'll make our own way back.
Here you are, lad.
It's a nasty gash, lad.
Where is she?
Very nasty, that is.
He killed Zebedee.
Hmm?
I'm leaving the force.
You'll need 1 or 2 stitches in that, lad, I shouldn't wonder.
I intend to make Miss Smith my wife at the first opportunity.
Goff. I took a train down to Waterbank myself. The housekeeper there told me as much about the women in Zebedee's life as she told you. The difference is the idealist only listened to what he wanted to hear. The realist had to listen to the lot.
She had nothing to do with Zebedee's death.
The knife belonged to her, lad. Now, I got that from an engraver in Waterbank. She had it inscribed. She was going to give it to Zebedee.
If she's guilty as hell, you wouldn't get me to give evidence against her. Because once we're married...
It's too late. She's confessed. Sergeant Gribble's taken to the station now.
You don't understand. He deserved to die.
Nobody deserves to die, Constable.
Priscilla. Priscilla.